Welcome to Bible True Crime with Mr. Thoroughly. If you like true crime and interesting Bible stories, then this is the podcast for you. This episode is Buried in the Liar's Tomb.
Well, I really like getting to do these episodes with you. It's kind of like having a date night in the middle of the week.
I enjoy it too.
So what's been going on at our house this week?
Well, we had that problem with the well.
Oh yeah, having water in the shower, that's pretty great to have that fixed.
Yeah, I'm glad that that was able to get resolved fairly easily. Thanks to some help from a friend there.
And because you can fix anything.
Well, I don't know. It depends on what they have on YouTube, I guess. But it's definitely good to fix things. But speaking of a well, this episode's going to have absolutely nothing to do with the well.
Well, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, we are going to be looking at a prophet who's going to listen to another prophet that's going to get him into trouble. So let's start with that. But we're going to look back around 930 BC. And what happens at this time is this is after Solomon. And Solomon, because of him setting up altars to worship false gods, God said that he was going to divide the kingdom is what he was going to do. So there became the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern king of Israel. The first king of Israel is Jeroboam. And King Jeroboam was afraid that the people were going to go to Jerusalem to worship God like God had commanded. So he set up golden calves at Bethel and at Dan. Now Bethel is only 12 miles from Jerusalem. And Dan is at the northern side of Israel. And he set up these golden calves so that people could worship the God that brought them out of Egypt, which is the same thing that happened way back in Exodus chapter 32 there, where they were worshiping a golden calf, and they called it the God that brought them out of Egypt. So they're trying to worship the right God, but in the wrong way. So he sets up these two places of idol worship, and the one at Bethel is the one that we're going to be looking at today.
You would have thought they would have learned their lesson the last time.
You'd think that a lot, and it's the same thing today. You'd think that people would learn their lesson, but people keep doing the same things over and over again. So Jeroboam sets up this golden calf in Bethel, which, again, it's only 12 miles from Jerusalem, but that keeps the people in the northern Israel from coming down to Jerusalem to worship. They'd come to Bethel and they'd worship falsely. So Jeroboam, he sets up altars there and he offers sacrifices. And it's while he's doing this that a prophet from God is going to approach him. So we are going to read about that in 1 Kings chapter 13. And behold, a man of God went from Judah to Bethel by the word of the Lord, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. Then he cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord, and said, O altar, altar, thus says the Lord, behold, a child, Josiah by name, shall be born to the house of David, and on you he shall sacrifice the priests of the high places, who burn incense on you, and men's bones shall be burned on you. And he gave a sign the same day, saying, This is the sign which the Lord has spoken. Surely the altar shall split apart, and the ashes on it shall be poured out. So it came to pass, when King Jeroboam heard the saying of the man of God, who cried out against the altar in Bethel, that he stretched out his hand from the altar, saying, Arrest him. Then his hand, which he stretched out toward him, withered. so that he could not pull it back to himself. The altar also split apart, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. Then the king answered and said to the man of God, Please entreat the favor of the Lord your God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored to me. So the man of God entreated the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him, and became as before. Then the king said to the man of God, Come home with me, and refresh yourself, and I will give you a reward.
Okay, so help me understand what all is going on here with the altar being split and the ashes and the withered hand. What all does all that mean?
So this prophecy is given to the altar itself. And it says that a child, Josiah, is going to be born to the house of David, which means this is southern kingdom Judah. And Josiah is actually going to be born 300 years later. And the event that is prophesied that happens around 620, 610 BC, somewhere around there, Josiah is going to be a child when he becomes king, but he's going to try to follow God the best that he can. They're going to find the book, the Bible, and try to follow it. And doing that, he's going to exterminate these false priests, and he's going to burn the bones of men on these altars to these false gods. And what that does with these altars is if human bones are burnt on them, it defiles them and it ruins the altars. So Josiah is going to ruin the altar and take out all these priests. It's what he does. He cleans up the idolatry there in Israel.
So would there be any extra meaning to Josiah coming along because he's a descendant of David?
Well, every one of the kings in the southern kingdom was a descendant of David. So he just knows that it's going to be a descendant of David. But Jeroboam doesn't know when this is going to happen. But he's pretty upset by it. And so he stretches out his hand towards the prophet and says, arrest him. So King Jeroboam says, arrest him. And King Jeroboam's hand withers immediately. So that makes him change his tune. And he asks for the man of God to pray to God so that his hand can be restored. And of course, the man of God does that, and he restores his hand. Now, what's important here, well, not to say that the other stuff isn't important, but what's leading us on to this next part is that Jeroboam, the king, is going to say, come home with me and refresh yourself, and I will give you a reward. So he's going to invite him to do something. And the response that the prophet gives, and we don't know the name of this prophet, but his response is going to be crucial to the story. So look at the next verse there.
Okay.
But the man of God said to the king, if you were to give me half your house, I would not go in with you, nor would I eat bread, nor drink water in this place. For so it was commanded me by the word of the Lord, saying, you shall not eat bread, nor drink water, nor return by the same way you came. So he went another way, and did not return by the way he came to Bethel. So he makes it real clear there that God has told him that he's not allowed to eat or drink with them, and he's got to go back a different route. So, and the prophet, he came up from Judah. So he came from the southern kingdom up into Israel to Bethel. Now he's got to return back home. He's going to go a different way, but he's not to eat or drink with them because God specifically commanded him not to do that. So let's see what happens next. Now an old prophet dwelt in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. They also told their father the words which he had spoken to the king. And their father said to them, which way did he go? For his sons had seen which way the man of God went, who came from Judah. Then he said to his sons, "Saddle the donkey for me." So they saddled the donkey for him, and he rode on it, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. Then he said to him, "Are you the man of God who came from Judah?" And he said, "I am." Then he said to him, "Come home with me and eat bread." And he said, "I cannot return with you, nor go in with you. Neither can I eat bread nor drink water with you in this place. For I have been told by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat bread nor drink water there, nor return by going the way you came."
Well, that had to be pretty confusing for the young prophet, because God told him not to stay, not to eat, and then here this older, supposedly wiser man comes along and says to do it.
Yeah, and of course he knows that he's not supposed to do that. So now we're gonna learn a little bit more about this older prophet here, because in verse 18, the older prophet, it says, he said to him, "I too am a prophet, as you are. And an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, saying, Bring him back with you to your house, that he may eat bread and drink water." He was lying to him.
Do we know what his motivation would have been?
No. It may be just to find favor with the king. It just seems like he's just messing with him. Maybe he wanted to meet another prophet, but why he would lie to him, have no idea. And it's hard to say with that, but he's saying that an angel told him that this younger prophet's supposed to come back and eat with him, even though the younger prophet said, "God told me not to do that."
Yeah. And I'm sure the younger prophet wanted to be respectful. And if the older prophet said, an angel said to do it, what do you do with that?
Yeah, let's see what happens here. So he went back with him and ate bread in his house and drank water. Now it happened, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. That's the older prophet. And he cried out to the man of God who came from Judah, saying, "Thus says the Lord, because you have disobeyed the word of the Lord, and have not kept the commandment which the Lord your God commanded you, but you came back, ate bread, and drank water in the place of which the Lord said to you, Eat no bread, and drink no water. Your corpse shall not come to the tomb of your fathers." So it was, after he had eaten bread, and after he had drunk, that he saddled the donkey for him, the prophet whom he had brought back. When he was gone, a lion met him on the road and killed him. That's the young prophet from Judah. He's killed by a lion. And his corpse was thrown on the road, and the donkey stood by it. The lion also stood by the corpse. And there men passed by and saw the corpse thrown on the road, and the lion standing by the corpse. Then they went and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt.
Wow.
Yeah, so this young prophet, he did what God told him not to do. But he thought that he was listening to something that this old prophet was saying, but the old prophet was lying to him. So just because somebody says they're a prophet doesn't mean that they're telling the truth. And even if they say that an angel gave them that information, it reminds me of Galatians chapter 1 where Paul says that if we, meaning apostles, or an angel from heaven preached to you a different gospel, they're to be accursed. What God says is what we're supposed to follow, and not let somebody take us away from that. That's where these false prophets come in. And this older man, he lied, but then he's also going to prophesy something true. God's going to work through him to let the young prophet know, you're not going to make it back home to be buried with your fathers.
Wow.
So while he's on the road heading back, a lion is going to kill him. And his corpse is laying there on the road, and people walk by and see it. And of course, they're going to talk. You see a lion standing there. You see the donkey that's there, and you see the lion. And the lion's not attacking the donkey. The lion's just standing there. Very odd sight. So people are talking about it. And, of course, this gets back to the old prophet, and he hears about it.
So then what happens with the old prophet?
Well, let's see here. Now, when the prophet who had brought him back from the way heard it, he said, "It is the man of God who was disobedient to the word of the Lord. Therefore the Lord has delivered him to the lion, which has torn him and killed him, according to the word of the Lord which he spoke to him." And he spoke to his sons, saying, "Saddle the donkey for me." So they saddled it. Then he went and found his corpse thrown on the road, and the donkey and the lion standing by the corpse. The lion had not eaten the corpse, nor torn the donkey. And the prophet took up the corpse of the man of God, laid it on the donkey, and brought it back. So the old prophet came to the city to mourn and to bury him. Then he laid the corpse in his own tomb, and they mourned over him, saying, "Alas, my brother." So it was, after he had buried him, that he spoke to his sons, saying, "When I am dead, then bury me in the tomb where the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones."
Wow, that's so strange.
Yeah. And he calls him his brother, and it seems like he just wants to take care of him and all that, but it's because of his lying to him that he ends up getting killed by a lion. Well, I guess it's not because of the lying, it's because
the guy didn't obey God.
The guy didn't obey God is really what it was, but this guy led him into temptation, definitely.
So do we think then that this is saying that the old prophet is feeling remorseful over it, or is he just taking care of the young prophet?
I don't know. Might be both. But he buries the young prophet in his own tomb. But then he instructs his sons, "When I die, put my bones next to his bones." So how would you like to be? I guess he's dead, so he didn't have much choice over it all. But he's laid in the tomb next to the one that helped him sin against God, and it resulted in his own death. So you have their bones stuck together in that tomb.
That just is so crazy to me.
Yeah, it is. That's why I thought this story is so interesting, because you've got a prophet of God that's tricked by a false prophet. He disobeys God. He ends up getting killed. But then the false prophet, he's going to pay for his sins too, but that's not mentioned in here. But the false prophet ends up burying him, and then he gets buried with him. So they're kind of joined together in the tomb there. Their bones are.
Yeah. It all just makes me so curious about the motivation behind it all. You think, was he just like missing being part of the action kind of, or what the story is there, but it lands him in a bad spot and lands the poor young prophet in a worse, just as bad a spot.
Yeah. So when you look at the real crime that's happening here, there's all the things that Jeroboam's doing where he's sinning against God. But then you've got this prophet that's lying and causes problems also. But then the man of God, what he did, he disobeyed something that God had directly told him.
And he knew because he stayed strong at the start.
Yes, but that old prophet must have been really convincing.
Yeah. We have to be careful with who we listen to, that's for sure. What have you got to close us out with today?
Well, I'm going to quote a verse from 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 11, which lets us know the value of looking at these stories in the Old Testament where people sinned and God punished them. So here's what that verse says. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. All Scripture is taken from the New King James Version, New American Standard Bible, English Standard Version, New International Version, or the King James Version.
Okay, everybody, so click follow on the Bible True Crime with Mr. Therley podcast. We hope you'll go back and listen to all of our episodes, share it with your friends, and join us again next time for more Bible True Crime.